Hi, my name is Isabel Stokes. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. For my project, I am focusing on postpartum mental health in women. I have one main goal for this. I want to bring light not only to the prevalence, but the effects that postpartum can have on new moms' mental health. Having a new baby is an adjustment, and sometimes it's harder for others. Oftentimes, mental health concerns are dismissed or underestimated. When talking about postpartum specifically, there are several different types of mental health disorders, and I find it extremely important for all women, mothers or not, to be aware of them. So, what mental health issues can develop or be present in mothers who just had a baby? One of the most common ones is called postpartum depression, or PPD. PPD is also referred to as baby blues by some people, but sometimes calling it this can undermine the severity of the disorder. PPD is a type of depression common after childbirth with feelings of sadness, anxiety, trouble sleeping, exhaustion, and excessive crying. Another disorder is called postpartum anxiety, or PPA. PPA is an extreme sense of anxiety after childbirth with racing thoughts, obsessions such as harming the baby, pressure to be perfect, irrational fears, and a general sense of danger, normally with no cause. Lastly, and the most rare, is postpartum psychosis, or PPP. PPP is considered a medical emergency, not nearly as common as PPD or PPA, but still relevant. Symptoms include delusions, hallucinations. Some common ones that have been reported are ones being about harming oneself or the baby, confusion, lack of sleep, panic attacks, and bizarre behavior. So now that you know the different types of disorders, who's my targeted audience? My targeted population of women is women, of any race, ages 20 to 35, specifically in the lower middle class. Why did I choose this audience? I chose ages 20 to 35 because after the age of 35, fertility declines to the point where conceiving naturally is not very possible on average. This does not include IVF or other kinds of conception methods. And I chose the lower middle class because it is estimated that only around 20 to 30% of adults in the lower middle class are college educated, making this topic probably new to many women. Now I want to talk about a case that I heard about when it was happening. This is a story that I actually never forgot, and I think it's important. This is the case of Lindsay Clancy. I'm using this story as an example of a very severe case of postpartum psychosis and the effects that it can have. So in early 2023, Lindsay Clancy took the lives of her 3 children and attempted to take her own, but failed. She became paralyzed from the waist down, while 2 of her children were pronounced dead on the scene, and her 3rd child succumbed to his injuries 4 days later. The defense claims she was suffering from postpartum psychosis. As this is still an active case, there are a lot of mixed opinions on what her fate should be within the community and around social media. There are some things to note in this case, such as Clancy was prescribed 13 different psychiatric medications between October 2022 and January 2023. Some of these medications were to treat anxiety, depression, and insomnia. Additionally, spanning from September 2022 to the day of the murders, Clancy is noted to have made several statements regarding her mental health. So this begs the question, was this premeditated, or were her concerns and pleas for help ignored or mistreated? So now I want to show you some statistics. This is a bar graph of the prevalence of postpartum depression in new mothers by ethnicity and race. As you can see, some ethnic groups suffer more than others. This is why this topic is important to me. All women need to be treated fairly, and these numbers should be lower. Now, of course, there's no perfect solution to preventing mental disorders, but this just shows that there could be a correlation between ethnic groups and the prevalence of mental health disorders as we see here. So moving on to my theoretical framework, I will be building my campaign around Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This theory focuses on how certain lower needs must be satisfied before higher needs become motivating factors. Because my topic is focused on psychological disorders and subsequently affect physical things, I feel that Maslow's hierarchy of needs fits this framework. But how does this fit? How does this tie into my campaign? So, this theory provides a valuable framework for understanding and addressing health disparities in mental health for postpartum women. By tying in this theory, I can emphasize that addressing postpartum mental health requires meeting women's needs comprehensively, from basic survival to self-fulfillment. Two really important parts of this tier are the physiological needs and safety needs. Physiological needs are important because women often lack basic physical needs such as sleep, proper nutrition, or inadequate medical follow-up care. Safety needs are important because my targeted audience, in particular, lower middle class, often struggle with financial stability, secure housing, and affordable access to health care. Using this hierarchy gives a sense of understanding for women to know that they aren't crazy, they just have unmet needs and they need help. It makes it a little bit more relatable and kind of helps them to understand that, there are needs that need to be met for certain things to happen. Okay. Yes, so here, okay. Now is my campaign plan. I will make a health campaign to reach my targeted audience. I will do this by using social media platforms such as Instagram to create infographics, tips, and calls for support to explain the hierarchy of needs and express how important they really are. I will post every day for 5 days using different messages to increase support for new moms. I will use the remaining tiers of Maslow's hierarchy of needs for each day. Day 1 is basic needs. For this part of the hierarchy, I will put emphasis on the basic needs like sleep, nutrition, and rest in relation to postpartum mental health. Day 2 is safety. I will express the importance of the safety needs portion of the hierarchy, such as sharing resources and advocacy posts. I will put emphasis on emotional and financial security, healthcare access, and destigmatization of postpartum mental health care. Day 3 is going to have the message of belonging from the hierarchy. Women who struggle with mental health need after having children, they need the feeling of having an army behind them. Creating a community for them is important. This would involve peer support posts, engagement posts, etc. Day 4 is for self-esteem needs from the hierarchy. Another thing women after childbirth need is to feel like they are strong and they are resilient and not weak. Women are far from weak. So I would create self-care reminders, which is my personal favorite, so my audience can take a moment to focus on themselves and be kind to themselves. Additionally, I would make affirmations, which is also another one of my favorites. Day 5 is for self-actualization from the hierarchy. This is the top pinnacle point of the hierarchy. This is more of a general idea as it would be for the general population. Things as getting my audience to talk about their long-term goals and their passions after recovery from just having a baby. So here's a social media example of an infographic explaining 4 ways for anyone to support new moms. I included a couple of the hierarchy tiers in this infographic, such as basic needs and belonging. How would I measure the effectiveness of my campaign? I would use surveys. Surveys are an easy way for me to see if my plan is reaching/affecting my targeted audience. I would put a link in my bio of my Instagram and ask questions such as, are you finding this content relatable? Are you finding this content educating? Is there anything you would add or remove? And do the group discussions prove to be helpful? Etc., etc. So in conclusion, hopefully the main takeaway from this for my audience is to understand the prevalence of postpartum mental health disorders and what we can do to support new moms. For those in the lower middle class, many are unaware of these situations, which can cause worsened disorders due to inadequate health care or being afraid to speak up due to possibly not being believed. I hope this presentation has shed light and provided a better understanding of the effects that postpartum can have on women and why it is important we talk about it and find avenues to help fight it. Thank you.